That bitter little seed sitting in the back of your grandmother's spice cabinet, the one nobody touches, the one that smells like maple syrup and tastes like dirt, turns out it does something to your blood sugar that most medications struggle to do. And it does it through a door that drugs don't even knock on. Garrett Landon. Here's what caught my attention. A clinical trial tracked people with type 2 diabetes who added this seed to their daily routine. Their post-meal blood sugar spike dropped by 42%. Not 10, not 15, 42. And that number kept holding week after week. The seed is fenugreek. Tiny, golden brown, shaped like a little pebble. You can buy a bag of it for a few dollars at any grocery store. And inside that seed are 3 separate compounds that each hit your blood sugar from a completely different angle. One of them, and this is the part that surprised me most, mimics something your own pancreas makes. But it does it more gently, more precisely, and only when your body actually needs it. There's also a timing problem almost everyone gets wrong. Take it at the wrong moment and you get almost nothing. Take it at the right moment and the effect doubles. But before I get into any of that, you need to understand what actually happens inside your gut in the 90 minutes after you eat a piece of bread. Because that's where this whole story starts. Think about what you had for lunch today, or yesterday. There was probably something starchy on the plate. Rice, a roll, maybe pasta, something white or close to it. And the moment that starch hits your small intestine, your body launches a chain reaction that most people never think about and almost nobody feels until it's too late. Your gut breaks that starch into glucose, fast. Within 20 to 30 minutes, a wave of sugar floods your bloodstream. Your pancreas scrambles to respond. It dumps insulin, a lot of it, to shove that sugar into your cells. And for a while, that works. Your blood sugar goes up, the insulin pushes it down, everything looks fine on paper. But here's where the problem hides. That spike, that sharp peak in blood sugar right after a meal, is not harmless. It doesn't just come and go. Each spike does a tiny amount of damage to the lining of your blood vessels. A single spike, your body repairs it. 2 spikes a day, 365 days a year for 10 years, that repair system starts to fall behind. And the vessels that suffer first are the smallest ones. The ones in your eyes, your kidneys, your fingertips, the places where you notice something is wrong only after the damage is already deep. And now hold that up against this. What if you could take that spike, that sharp, fast peak, and flatten it? Not eliminate the glucose. Your body needs glucose, but slow it down. Spread it out over 2 hours instead of 30 minutes. Same total amount of sugar reaching your blood. Same energy, but no spike, no scramble, no damage. That's exactly what fenugreek does. And it starts with the simplest of its 3 tricks. Inside that tiny seed is a fiber called galactomannan. You don't need to remember the name, just remember what it does. When galactomannan meets water in your stomach, it swells. It turns into a thick, sticky gel. And that gel coats the food you just ate like a slow-release wrapper. Instead of your gut absorbing all that glucose in one fast rush, it absorbs it slowly, steadily, over a much longer window. One clinical trial measured this directly. People who took fenugreek before a meal saw their glucose absorption slow down enough to cut the post-meal spike almost in half. Same food, same calories, same carbs, just a different speed of delivery. If that's hitting home for you, save this video so you don't lose it. What's coming next matters even more. And this would be interesting enough on its own. A seed that acts like a traffic cop for sugar in your gut. But fenugreek doesn't stop there, because there's a second compound hiding inside it. And this one doesn't work in your gut at all. It works somewhere else entirely. Somewhere most foods can't reach. Your pancreas. That small, pale organ tucked behind your stomach. Most people forget it's even there until something goes wrong. It has one job that matters for this conversation. It makes insulin. And when your blood sugar rises after a meal, your pancreas is supposed to release just the right amount of insulin at just the right time. Not too much, not too little, not too early, not too late. But for tens of millions of people, that calibration is off. The pancreas either releases too little insulin, or it releases it too slowly, or the cells stop listening to it. That's the beginning of type 2 diabetes. And by the time your fasting glucose is high enough to show up on a standard blood test, the miscommunication between your pancreas and your blood sugar has already been going on for years. And here's where fenugreek does something I didn't expect when I first looked into it. Inside the seed is an amino acid, a building block of protein that exists almost nowhere else in nature. It goes by a technical name, but forget it. What matters is what it does. This amino acid lands on the beta cells of your pancreas. Those are the cells that produce insulin, and it gives them a nudge, a gentle, precise signal. Release a little more insulin. But, and this is the part that matters most, it only sends that signal when your blood sugar is already elevated. When your glucose is normal, this compound sits there and does nothing. No extra insulin. No risk of your sugar crashing too low. It waits. And the moment glucose rises above a certain threshold after a meal, it activates. Like a thermostat that only kicks on when the room gets warm. That's not how most diabetes drugs work. Most of them push insulin out regardless of what your blood sugar is doing. That's why hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar, is one of the most common side effects. This compound from fenugreek doesn't have that problem. It's glucose dependent. It reads the room before it acts. If you know someone dealing with blood sugar problems, send them this video right now, or drop a comment. Someone scrolling through might recognize themselves in what you write. And now think about this for a second. You've got one compound that slows glucose absorption in the gut, and a second compound that nudges the pancreas to handle that glucose more efficiently, but only when it needs to. Two mechanisms, two different organs, working from two different directions, and neither of them was designed in a lab. They've been sitting inside a seed that people have been cooking with for centuries. But I mentioned three compounds earlier. The third one works in a place you'd never guess, and it changes the whole picture. Your gut bacteria. Trillions of organisms living inside your intestines. And they don't just sit there passively, they actively talk to your metabolism. They send chemical signals that affect how sensitive your cells are to insulin. They influence how much glucose your liver decides to dump into your blood overnight while you sleep. They even affect how hungry you feel 2 hours after a meal. And here's something that only came into focus in the last few years of research. The composition of your gut bacteria, which species dominate, which ones are missing, has a direct effect on your blood sugar. People with poorly controlled blood sugar tend to have less diversity in their gut. Fewer of the species that produce short-chain fatty acids, more of the species that promote inflammation. And that inflammation makes insulin resistance worse. It's a loop. Bad bacteria lead to worse blood sugar, and worse blood sugar feeds bad bacteria. Now remember that galactomannan fiber from the fenugreek seed? It doesn't just form a gel and slow glucose absorption. It has a second job. It's a prebiotic. It feeds the good bacteria in your colon. Specifically, the strains that produce those short-chain fatty acids your gut lining needs to stay intact. When those bacteria thrive, the gut wall stays tight, inflammation goes down, and insulin sensitivity improves. Not just in the gut, but systemically, in your muscles, in your liver, everywhere insulin is supposed to work. So now you've got three mechanisms from one seed. The fiber slows glucose absorption. The amino acid helps the pancreas respond. And the prebiotic effect reshapes the bacterial environment that was making the whole problem worse in the first place. 3 layers, 3 different entry points. And here's the thing that tied it all together for me. These 3 don't just add up, they multiply each other. A slower glucose curve gives the pancreas more time. A more responsive pancreas handles that curve more efficiently. And a healthier gut makes both of those effects last longer. That was the answer to the riddle I'd been sitting with. Why does a single seed outperform some supplements that target only one pathway? Because it's not targeting one pathway, it's targeting 3 simultaneously, and they reinforce each other. But none of that matters if you get the timing wrong. Remember when I said almost everyone makes a mistake with when they take fenugreek? Here it is. Most people throw fenugreek into their food while cooking. They sprinkle seeds into a curry. They add powder to a smoothie they drink with breakfast. And while that's not harmful, it misses the point. Because the gel, the one that slows glucose absorption, needs to form before the food arrives. Not at the same time. Before. If the fenugreek and the food land in your stomach together, the gel doesn't have time to set up. It gets mixed into the food mass and its effect drops dramatically. Clinical trials that showed the strongest results? They gave fenugreek 15 to 30 minutes before the meal. That window, that short gap, is the difference between a 42% reduction in your blood sugar spike and a reduction you'd barely notice on a glucose monitor. So how do you actually do this? Because theory without practice is just a conversation. And I want this to be something you can start tomorrow morning. There are two ways. The simplest one first. Take 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds, whole seeds, not powder. Put them in a glass of water before you go to bed. By morning, they've soaked for 8 hours. The seeds are soft. The water is slightly golden. Drink the water. Eat the seeds. Do this 15 to 20 minutes before your first meal. That's it. 1 teaspoon, 1 glass, 1 night of soaking. And if you've never done this before, start small. A single teaspoon is about 3 to 4 grams. Most clinical trials use between 5 and 25 grams a day, so a teaspoon is on the low end. Stay there for a week. Let your gut adjust. Because here's something nobody warns you about. Fenugreek increases gas, particularly in the first few days. The fiber is feeding bacteria in your colon, and those bacteria produce gas as a byproduct. It settles down. But if you start with a tablespoon on day 1, you'll have a very uncomfortable afternoon and probably quit before you see any benefit. After that first week, you can go up to 2 teaspoons a day. Some people split it, 1 before breakfast, 1 before dinner. That covers 2 out of your 3 daily glucose spikes. And that already puts you in the range that showed results in the trials. What I'm about to say could change your evening. If there's someone next to you who needs to hear this, forward this video now before you forget. Sometimes a single link does more than 10 doctor visits. The second method is powder. You can grind fenugreek seeds in a coffee grinder or buy them pre-ground. Mix a teaspoon into a glass of water, stir it, and drink it 15 minutes before a meal. The powder dissolves faster. The gel forms faster. Some people prefer this because you don't have to plan the night before. The effect is comparable. Now, and listen closely here because this is where I need to be direct with you. Fenugreek is not a replacement for medication. If you're on metformin, if you're on a sulfonylurea, if you're injecting insulin, do not stop, do not reduce, do not adjust without talking to whoever prescribed it. Fenugreek works alongside medication, not instead of it. And because it does lower blood sugar, combining it with certain drugs without supervision could push your glucose too low. That's dangerous. That's a trip to the emergency room. What fenugreek can do, and what the data actually supports, is help people who are pre-diabetic. People whose fasting glucose sits between 100 and 125. People whose A1C is creeping up, but isn't at the threshold yet. People who've been told to watch it, but haven't been given anything to take. For those people, fenugreek, combined with the right changes in eating and movement, can be the thing that keeps them on this side of the line. And there's one more thing, something I don't hear anyone talk about, and it bugs me. Fenugreek changes the way your sweat and urine smell. You'll smell like maple syrup. It's not subtle, and it's not harmful, but nobody mentions it. So people start fenugreek, notice the smell 2 days later, panic, and assume something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. It's a harmless compound in the seed called sotalone. It passes through your body and comes out in your sweat. That's all. So let me bring this back to where we started. That bitter seed nobody touches. The one that sits in the dark corner of the spice shelf next to things you bought once and forgot about. Inside it are 3 compounds that work on your blood sugar from 3 different directions. Slowing glucose absorption in the gut, helping the pancreas respond more precisely, and reshaping the bacterial landscape that was making everything worse. And the kicker is this: it's not new, it's ancient. People have been cooking with it, brewing tea from it, grinding it into paste for so long that the knowledge got lost somewhere between traditional kitchens and modern pharmacies. Nobody patented it, so nobody markets it. Nobody markets it, so nobody talks about it. And nobody talks about it, so it sits on the bottom shelf while you walk past it on your way to the supplement aisle. I thought about that for a while, about how many things in medicine we overlook simply because there's no money behind them. A seed that costs pennies per serving, that needs no prescription, that you can find in any grocery store, and it sits there gathering dust while people spend hundreds a month on supplements with weaker evidence. Not because fenugreek is magic, it's not, but because the data is solid and almost nobody knows about it. More than 24 randomized controlled trials, reductions in fasting glucose, reductions in post-meal spikes, drops in A1C, and no serious side effects, beyond gas in the first week and smelling like a pancake house for a while. No liver toxicity, no kidney damage, nothing that made researchers stop the trials early. 1 teaspoon, soaked overnight, 15 minutes before breakfast. That's the starting line, not the finish line. Nobody fixes blood sugar with 1 seed and nothing else. You still need to move your body. You still need to cut the late-night bread and soda. You still need to sleep and manage your stress. But it's one of the simplest, cheapest, most evidence-backed steps you can take if your glucose has been drifting in a direction you don't like. And your body forgives a lot, but not forever. There's a window, and it shrinks. Every time you hit that like button, the algorithm shows this video to someone who needs it. Someone out there is going to bed tonight not knowing what you now know. 1 share, and you might save someone's pancreas, or their vision, or their next decade. Think about your morning tomorrow. That glass of water on the counter, those little golden seeds at the bottom, 15 minutes before you eat. It costs almost nothing. It takes almost no time. And the 3 mechanisms inside that seed will start working before you finish your first cup of coffee. I'll keep saying what others would rather not, as long as you keep listening. Until next time.